The Greenland Sea is the most unlikely place for life to thrive on planet Earth. Water temperature never exceeds 4 degrees Celsius, even in the warmest summer. Sea ice covers 400,000 square kilometers of ocean, transforming liquid surface into a floating white continent. Whales sing symphonies that echo 300 kilometers through waters so pure that light penetrates 60 meters deep. Icebergs 100,000 years old navigate silently like blue cathedrals, transporting pre-industrial atmosphere trapped in frozen crystals. Seals give birth on unstable ice, betting that floating platforms won't melt before pups learn to swim. Walruses with 1-meter tusks dive 90 meters, consuming 6,000 mollusks per day. Polar bears walk on surfaces that shouldn't support weight, but do, because ice physics is a molecular miracle. This is the natural laboratory where life tested extreme limits and won for millions of years. But something has changed. Between 70 and 80 degrees north latitude, the Greenland Sea carves a deep blue scar between Earth's wildest island and the central Arctic Ocean. Marine currents from the south meet descending polar waters in a perpetual whirlpool that mixes temperatures, salinities, and the fates of entire creatures. The surface freezes for 8 consecutive months, forming sea ice expanses stretching hundreds of thousands of square kilometers, whilst below, at depths exceeding 3,000 meters, almost eternal waters circulate, carrying dissolved oxygen and ancestral nutrients. Katabatic winds plummet from Greenland's interior glaciers at speeds exceeding 150 kilometers per hour, sculpting frozen waves on the sea surface and creating fractal pressure patterns visible from space. Here, the planet breathes through ice lungs, but the breathing is becoming irregular. The line where ocean becomes solid ice is receding 6 kilometers per year. This isn't metaphor. It's satellite measurement confirmed by 3 independent space agencies. In eastern Greenland's extremity, this frontier between liquid and solid determines who lives, who dies, who migrates, and who disappears forever. Ice isn't decorative scenery in this polar theater. It's survival architecture, and someone's demolishing the foundations whilst the show continues. Each crack opening in the frozen surface releases ocean heat into glacial air, creating vapor clouds that dance beneath auroras, like ghosts of a dying ecosystem. Each drifting plate carries microscopic universes of algae, bacteria, and crustaceans that never touched land and will die when ice melts completely. The sea here doesn't end at the surface. It multiplies into vertical layers of life, each operating under its own rules of temperature, pressure, and light that took millions of years to calibrate. And everything's being recalibrated in decades. But something here refuses to give up. 400 meters below the frozen surface, waters that departed the North Atlantic decades ago continue their circular Arctic journey, carrying secrets no satellite can read. They transport chemical signatures of submarine volcanic eruptions, extinct glacier melt, phytoplankton blooms that fed whales now dead, atmospheric carbon levels that should be in history books but are being rewritten annually. Here, memory isn't metaphor. It's pure physics recorded in dissolved salt, carbon, and oxygen molecules moving in slow but relentless spiral, like a liquid hard drive storing planetary data. Deep currents rise to the surface at specific points, bringing nutrients imprisoned in abyssal darkness for centuries, detonating microscopic life explosions that stain the sea emerald green visible from space. These upwellings are invisible oases attracting shoals, which attract predators, sustaining entire ecosystems dependent on an oceanic timetable older than Egyptian pyramids. The Greenland Sea forgets nothing. It accumulates, processes, redistributes every climate sin we've committed. And now it's beginning to return the bill. 211 years. Read that again. 211 years. The bowhead whale, Balaena mysticetus, emerging between ice fragments, was born in 1813, before Lincoln abolished slavery, before Darwin published On the Origin of Species, before humans invented electric lights. Its 60-ton body carries rusted harpoons from hunters whose great-grandchildren have died of old age. It glides beneath 2-meter-thick ice plates, using its skull's bony protuberance as an ancestral biological ram, breaking passages no modern ship can force. 5-meter baleen plates filter 4 tons of zooplankton daily, transforming microscopic crustaceans into muscle mass that defies death, disease, predation, and time. Its song resonates 400 kilometers through frozen water, low frequencies carrying information about migration routes, feeding grounds, and ice changes that only centenarian creatures can truly understand and no human scientist can completely decipher. This whale witnessed the Arctic when it was still stable. It knows what we've lost, and continues swimming even whilst its world melts. They sing so they won't die lost. The beluga, Delphinapterus lucus, operates in darkness where vision is a luxury nobody can afford, so it transformed sound into absolute survival superpower. Sharp clicks firing 200 times per second map ice crevices with 3-dimensional resolution superior to any military sonar. Melodious whistles coordinate family groups separated by kilometers of murky water. Strident pulses stun entire schools of Arctic fish that freeze in acoustic panic. Its pure white body isn't accidental beauty. It's perfect thermal engineering, where melanin pigment absence reduces heat loss through radiation in waters that freeze mussels of less optimized species in minutes. Groups of 20 to 50 individuals navigate narrow channels between icebergs, where calculation error means instant crushing between tons of moving ice. Their vocalizations creating sound maps that update in real time as currents move mortal obstacles. Neck flexibility allows lateral head movements, transforming each beluga into a living scanner capable of inspecting submarine caves, predator dens, and ice traps with precision that shames robots. But something's wrong. Their songs are changing. Scientists detected variations in vocal patterns not appearing in 200 years of historical whaling records. The Arctic is speaking differently, and nobody knows how to translate the new dialect. Being born on a floating ice plate in the planet's most hostile ocean is a survival gamble no rational species would attempt. The harp seal, Pagophyllus groenlandicus, had no evolutionary choice. Pups emerged directly onto sea ice with immaculate white fur reflecting 90% of solar radiation, thermal system so efficient it maintains 37 degrees Celsius body temperature when external air marks minus 28 degrees. For exactly 14 days, the mother stays glued to the pup, nursing with milk containing 45% pure fat, metabolic fuel so dense it transforms 10-kilogram pup into 35-kilogram juvenile in 2 weeks, gaining 1 kilogram 800 grams daily. Ice isn't stable platform. It cracks under weight, drifts with currents, melts with Arctic heat waves now arriving even in deep winter. Adult seals dive to 300 meters depth, holding breath for 16 minutes whilst hunting fish in absolute darkness where pressure crushes human lungs. Upon returning, they use claws like biological pickaxes to tear openings in newly formed ice, trying to seal all exits, creating private breathing holes in an ocean conspiring against respiration. Living on ice requires accepting the ground can disappear any second, and it's disappearing faster each year. 1,200 kilograms of muscle mass emerge from the sea in direct violation of terrestrial gravity laws. The Atlantic walrus, Odobinus rosmarus, drags impossible body over coastal rocks using ivory tusks reaching 1 meter length, transforming canine teeth into multi-use tools for bloody combat, grotesque sexual display, and anchorage in currents that would tear ships from moorings. Colonies of 800 individuals pile onto beaches where space is more contested resource than food. Dominant males defending sofa-sized territories through combat that tears 5-centimeter thick hide and breaks facial bones. Below the surface, these meat mountains become unlikely ballerinas, diving to 90 meters to scour muddy seafloors, searching for buried bivalve mollusks. Sensory whiskers containing 5,000 nerve endings function like underwater tactile fingers, detecting microscopic vibrations of clams hidden beneath 20 centimeters of sediment. An adult walrus must consume 6,000 mollusks in 6-hour feeding session to maintain operational metabolism, sucking meat from shells using oral vacuum generating negative pressure equivalent to industrial Hoover. Tusks broken in territorial duels never regenerate, carrying violence biographies engraved in cracked and blood-stained ivory. But something bizarre is happening. Walruses have begun appearing on beaches where they've never been seen historically, climate refugees fleeing ice that no longer supports their weight. 800 kilograms of pure predator walk on thin ice with trained ballerina lightness. The polar bear, Ursus maritimus, doesn't hunt for sport or tradition. It kills to avoid starving in a world where food is rare luxury, concentrated in increasingly narrow temporal windows. Smell capable of detecting seal at 1 kilometer 600 meters distance through 1.5 meter solid ice transforms this hunter into sensory missile, pursuing molecular chemical traces invisible to any human technology. Front paws 30 centimeters diameter distribute weight over thin ice that would break under human boots, allowing crossings over surfaces that shouldn't even support solid matter existence. When sea ice recedes prematurely in summer, coastal bears face impossible choice: fast on land for months or swim suicidal oceanic distances seeking ice plates receding 60 kilometers weekly. Fasts, now extending 7 consecutive months, are survived by burning fat reserves until muscle mass begins metabolizing, process condemning pregnant females to spontaneous abortions when body decides gestation is impossible caloric luxury. Females that manage to gestate dig dens in compacted snow, birthing 600-gram twins whilst remaining in reduced metabolic state that decreases heartbeats from 40 to 8 beats per minute. Cameras installed by scientists captured something never documented: polar bears cannibalizing others' cubs because there aren't enough seals anymore. 350 kilometers of saltwater serpentine between mountains piercing clouds at 2,200 meters altitude. Scoresby Sund isn't merely the planet's largest fjord system. Its geological archive, where football stadium-sized icebergs navigate in slow motion through natural corridors, carrying 110,000-year-old ice, imprisoning pre-industrial atmosphere in microscopic bubbles. Scientists drill these icebergs, extracting ice cylinders like planetary biopsies, analyzing chemical composition of air breathed by humans who never imagined industrial civilization was possible. Each sample reveals inconvenient truth. Current atmospheric carbon dioxide levels are 45% higher than anything recorded in the last 800,000 years. Vertical basalt rock walls plunge 1,800 meters straight into water, creating submerged abysses where sunlight dies in the first 20 meters before being swallowed by perpetual darkness inhabited by creatures that never saw surface. Tidal currents accelerate through narrow passages, reaching 20-knot speeds, creating whirlpools and rapids dragging abyssal nutrients to surface, fertilizing submerged kelp gardens where polar cod spawn in lunar synchrony. Distorted echoes ricochet between rock walls, transforming distant glacier collapse into omnidirectional thunder seemingly coming from Earth's very center. But the sound is changing. Glaciers are collapsing with frequency 6 times greater than 30 years ago. The labyrinth is dismantling. 500 meters below the illuminated surface, where hydrostatic pressure crushes human skulls and temperature stabilizes at -2 degrees Celsius without freezing only because extreme salinity lowers water's melting point, the Arctic squid, Gonatus fabrizii, reigns over darkness empire operating in biological economy, totally disconnected from sunlight. Tentacles armed with 100-toothed suckers grab bioluminescent lanternfish, committing fatal error of emitting light in territory controlled by hunters evolved to kill anything that glows. Eyes 10 centimeters diameter capture individual photons, transforming near absolute darkness into visual landscape where bioluminescence draws maps of desperate prey trying to attract sexual partners but attracting only death. These squid are invisible connectors of vertical food chain, transporting energy and carbon captured in abyssal depths to surface predators through nocturnal migrations, moving biomass equivalent to 3 million tons nightly. Bowhead whales dive specifically to intercept these squid ascensions during 2-hour temporal windows, programmed by biological rhythms, operating even when polar darkness eliminates any distinction between day and night. Scientific trawl nets brought to surface squid with partially regenerated tentacles, evidence of attacks from larger predators still unknown to science inhabiting depths where humans never descended. Below light, life doesn't diminish. It just gets too strange to believe without proof. These floating mountains drift south following East Greenland Current, gradually melting over 3 years, whilst releasing fresh water, diluting North Atlantic surface salinity, altering density, governing global thermohaline circulation, responsible for distributing heat between equator and poles through oceanic current, moving 100 times Amazon river flow. Icebergs aren't merely photogenic. They're climate protagonists, redistributing planetary heat. But there's a problem. Glacial collapse rate increased 600% since 1990. The cradle is in accelerated labor, and it's birthing the deluge. Polynyas are permanently open wounds in sea ice, trying to heal but never managing. At Abyssal coast, persistent ascending oceanic currents conspire with katabatic winds to maintain liquid water zones surrounded by 60 kilometers of solid ice in deep Arctic winter, creating improbable oases where life concentrates at densities defying limited resource logic. But for first time in its 200 years of life, ice isn't returning as it should. Whilst you watch this video, 47 square kilometers of Arctic Sea ice melted permanently. Species that dominated extremes for millions of years now face extinction in decades, speed no genetic code can match. Bears cannibalizing cubs, walruses refugeed on wrong beaches, birds starving whilst fish flee to north that doesn't exist. This isn't documentary about distant nature. It's real-time autopsy of planetary life support system. The Arctic isn't merely planet's thermometer. It's control valve regulating each continent's climate. And it's breaking, if this matters. If you reckon 200-year-old whales deserve to die in ocean still having ice, if you believe your grandchildren deserve planet minimally resembling this one, speak up now, like so algorithm spreads urgency. Subscribe because next video will show what's coming. Comment what you felt, because silent witnesses are accomplices. The Arctic doesn't need our poetic pity. It demands immediate, uncomfortable action. Ice still breathes, but it's gasping. And time to decide between watching or acting ended 15 years ago. We're in extra time, and the clock's accelerating.